Alright, YouTube, if you've looked at the lamestream legacy media lately, Assange, not only is he a Russian agent and a rapist and fudging emails, he's also a pedophile or something along those lines. It turns out, though, that this was a long-standing plan of the Democratic Party to smear him in this way. And that Clinton and all of these others, they know that he's not influenced by Russia. They know he's not a pervert. They know that these things are absolutely false, and they ended up creating a shell company just to push the idea that he was. This is monumentally damaging. I think anyone who cares about whistleblowers, which on the left, it's a declining number of people. They're falling in line behind their Führer, I guess. But independent voters are going to see this, and if they do, I don't think that they're going to like what they see, because WikiLeaks some time ago predicted, dropped files predicting that this is exactly what would happen, that the Democratic Party, when these leaks begin, would first cast him as a Russian agent, or controlled by the Russians, and that he had taken $1 million from Russia. Now, why exactly somebody who's stuck in an embassy would need $1 million, why that would help them when they can't go anywhere, I'm not exactly sure, but that's the story, I guess, that they're telling. And second, attempted to use essentially what amounts to a fake dating service solely to slander Julian Assange. I'm not surprised, even though that's potentially a fairly expensive thing to pull on. It's probably a lot cheaper than sending a rocket through his bedroom window. Which is, again, what Clinton originally wanted to do, apparently, when he was back in Sweden. I've had people that didn't even believe the story. I post a link, I say, this is people who were talking to Clinton at the time who recall exactly what she said. They tried to misquote her, too. I can tell it's CTR doing it, or DNC staffers or something. Correct the record. Oh, that's not what Clinton said. Clinton was just joking at the time. Well, no, she wasn't joking. She was serious. That's why people were taken aback, and that's why people spread the story around, because it seems a little bit odd now, doesn't it, for somebody who's attempting to become the president talking about bombing somebody on Allied soil for apparently no real purpose other than to cover up their own foibles and scandals. But yeah, the Clintons of the world are aware that Assange is not a pervert. They're aware that he's not a Russian agent. It's a traditional smear tactic to call somebody you don't like a pervert. This even happens online. Take into consideration just the human mentality for a moment. How many times have you seen somebody allege that somebody that they don't like online is somehow they're perverted? They've broken the law in some other way, they're violent, they beat their girlfriend, something like that. How many times have you seen this transpire? Quite frequently. It happens in politics all the time. What for the last week or so, before these truly damaging leaks started coming out, the last few rounds of WikiLeaks and O'Keefe's material, for about a week there, what was public discourse primarily about? Bill Clinton's a rapist, and Trump is groping women and molesting them. That's the public discourse that reigned at the time. It had nothing to do with policy, did it? It had nothing to do with honesty at its core. It just had to do with, trying to cast these politicians as perverted in some way. For some of these claims, I guess there's more substantiation than for others. Ultimately, though, that conversation is passing by the wayside. Even CNN last night, this is a big story. Even CNN dedicated a fairly large chunk of their pre-debate coverage last night to O'Keefe's second revelation. That's bad for Clinton, because I don't think that she expected the mainstream media, that she's paid off to cover it at all. And I think for a moment there, I looked at Anderson Cooper's face when he was talking about this, and I saw what I think might be a defeated man. Somebody who has become completely disillusioned. Somebody who realizes the gig may be up. I think that now they are awaiting more leaks that are going to get worse. I think they're starting to get it in their heads that Clinton is probably going to end up actually in a jail cell, not because of her server, not because of Benghazi, but because of election fraud. And they're going to start piling back off her campaign and reporting on things. By the way, I will say this. One thing I will say in defense of the legacy media. I am sure that at least for some of these legacy media groups, they would really love to fairly report on these things because they get a huge amount of revenue in the form of ads that people click when they put out one of these sensationalist stories. Sensationalism can sometimes still be at least tangentially related to the truth. Simply ignoring things and not covering them, of course, is a lie by omission. Two totally different stories. I think CNN would love to report on the fact that Clinton is a complete slimeball. However, I think they're afraid that if they do that and she wins, they get closed out of the government, they don't get the story tips, they don't get the interviews, their competitors do, and then they suffer. I think, though, now that you no longer have quite as much of an incentive because it's clear that Clinton is going to remain embroiled in scandal for the next 3 weeks, and it could very well stall out her campaign altogether. I think you're beginning to see at least the rudiments of a glimmer of realization on their part that she may not actually be a shoo-in, which is more than you can say for many Democratic partisans. They still think that Clinton's got a 100% chance of victory, based solely on polling that appears to become more and more uncoupled from reality with every day. And if you pay attention to WikiLeaks, the oversampling of, for instance, female voters or minority voters, or sampling predominantly in an area that's friendly towards democratic causes, appears to have been deliberate. And that's why people, we can't assume that there's not going to be rigging in the election, because we now have tapes showing Democratic operatives saying there has been, there will be, and we're planning more of it. We can't have faith in the polling because CNN and NBC at the very least, have openly come out for the Clinton campaign. They've been paid off or threatened or bribed or whatever by the Clinton campaign. We can't necessarily trust their polling methodology. We can't trust the pundits on the legacy media outlets because they've always been bought off by a bunch of corporate donors, largely which back Hillary Clinton. So we've got a problem right now in our politics where the truth is a bit more elusive. In 2012, it was cut and dry. It was easy. Because Romney and Obama come from the same general school of philosophy, a neoliberal, a neoconservative, basically the same thing. The elites didn't care which one of them won, thus they funded both of them, and it's just sort of a game to them. Because it didn't matter who won, their plans are going to be fundamentally the same. This time around, you can see, they're desperately attempting to stave off some new blood in D.C. that hasn't been a politician before. He's not getting virtually any corporate donations. He's not getting anything from the banks. The lobbying groups largely are dead set against him. Most of the legacy media is against him. I say thus, I trust Trump more because these people appear to fear him. And these people are the same people that I dislike. They're the ones that screwed us over for the last few decades. They're the ones that have written our policies, both foreign and domestic. And they've done a terrible job. It's harming our country. I wouldn't go so far as to call them all traitors. I would, however, say they're dumb. They appear not to understand how economies function with any degree of actual fairness. And I say fairness, not equality. I don't care about equality. I care about fairness. If a person's working, they shouldn't be starving. That's not a communist ethos. It's not a socialist ethos. It's a common sense ethos. The government's responsible for these problems. When Trump talks about term limits for Congress, drain the swamp, here's the ethics plan reform, we're going to ban this lobbyist cash, we're going to go after Citizens United. My goodness, all these corporations and banks, it's no wonder, including the media, which is, the legacy media is a system of corporations. I don't think people realize the fact that the journalists there have press credentials doesn't mean these aren't for-profit entities. They're corporations. It's very, very funny to see even diehard leftists trust CNN or MSNBC. Because 40 or 50 years ago, anybody who proclaimed themselves to be to the left, they wouldn't. They would know better because they would realize, it's a corporation, it's a business. They've got a stake in the game in a monetary sense. So when they endorse Hillary Clinton, when they fund Hillary Clinton, when they refuse to air bad stories about what Hillary Clinton has done, it's fairly obvious who the boring, old, outdated establishment candidate is. And if you could revive some of the real hippies, most of which are dead by now, all the others became turncoats, stopped being leftist altogether, and became the Reagan youth of the neocon movement, believe it or not. Very, very funny. None of them would vote for Hillary Clinton. Some of them would back Trump. They'd say, chaos, it's good. A lot of them would back Johnson or Stein. The rest of them would go out in the woods and they wouldn't vote at all. Not a single one of them would have voted for Hillary Clinton. People should know better. Take one look at what Hillary Clinton's saying and all the revelations that she's tried to hide from us. Do you honestly think that this is a person capable of governing in a fair manner? Do you honestly believe that this is a person who's capable of telling the truth to the American public about jack shit? I don't believe it. I don't think she will. I think it'll be 4 more years of an opaque administration, not transparent at all. It will headhunt after whistleblowers. It will start proxy conflicts. It will edge us closer and closer to the Third World War. And we will be worse off after 4 years than we are now. I find it funny. Several generations were spent trying to prevent nuclear war. And people breathed a sigh of relief when the USSR collapsed and it looked like maybe, just maybe, the Cold War was over. Now you have the same party that not that long ago was preaching against warmongering doctrines, openly embracing them and saying, yeah, let's have another Cold War. Let's antagonize Russia, because somehow this is a good thing. The Democrats have become the party of America. The Republicans no longer are. It's very funny. Even very early on in this campaign, you saw, America's always great. America's already great. America, fuck yeah. We don't need to change a thing about what we're doing. Everything's fine. But the fact that the president happens to be half black and have a D after his name doesn't mean that that's not the Bible-thumping, gun-toting America mentality that you yourself hated in the Republican Party not even a decade prior. The fact that you're not thumping the Bible as much doesn't matter, and you see even increasingly within the Democratic Party, they're also becoming like the Bible-thumping party. Jesus wouldn't approve of Trump's foreign policy. Jesus wouldn't like this. Jesus was a liberal. You people are nuts. Come on. Jesus. But yeah, Clinton's aware that Assange is not a pervert. Because some of those email leaks from Podesta involve an attempt to smear him as a pervert. Well, yeah, looks like they went ahead with their plan, despite the fact that the public already knew that they were going to do that. So I guess it was prophetic. If these emails supposedly weren't real, I still have people trying to claim that they're not. If they're not real, then why are they being referred to as stolen? Not a source of libel, not a source of slander, not selective editing and being paid off by Russia to release fake emails. Stolen by Podesta and Clinton and their other aides. It's because they're real. These are real scandals. The O'Keefe videos. Why do you think that Creamer resigned? Why was Fovel fired? Why is Vargas probably on his way out, wherever the hell he's working now? It's because these are real. The investigative journalism is real. O'Keefe and Assange and a bunch of YouTubers and bloggers are doing what the lamestream legacy media refuses to do. But there is still hope. It looks like Anderson Cooper is about to pull out what's left of his hair and crack mentally. If you looked at him last night, it was linked on 4chan. That's the only reason I was aware it was even being reported on there. I didn't even expect them to. I expected some of the smaller lamestream legacy media sites maybe to pick up the story, but CNN, never in my wildest dreams did I think it would reach that high just with part 2. Well, that's pretty bad for the Clinton campaign, because even you've got a couple people on there, they're diehard Democratic partisans, further left than Hillary. And even they're saying, yeah, this is disturbing what's going on, because how can we have faith in the electoral process? And it was almost, when watching them, it was almost like electric watching them. To see them finally realize that something fucking shifty is going on here. Yeah, it's good. It shows they have a little bit of decency and integrity and intelligence. Anderson Cooper apparently isn't dumber than a box of rocks like some people thought that he was. Because you look at his face, and I think you can see the realization begin to set in there. I don't think that he's too happy with the people who probably either threatened him into silence or bribed him into doing nothing but fluff stories for Hillary Clinton. I think he's feeling pretty backstabbed right now. Could just be I could be completely unfounded in this opinion, but that's at least what it resembles to me. The Clinton campaign's doing, at this point, literally nothing but lie. She hasn't said anything that's truthful in weeks. She hasn't talked about any substantive policy in weeks. And don't expect her to, by the way. Trump's not going to let her anyway. He's going to continue to hammer her on her moral character because it's a winning strategy. Again, at what point in the next 3 weeks does the tipping point get achieved at which no longer can even her soft supporters back her because it's so clear that she's a slimeball? I think you're going to get to see that. That's still my prediction. And if I turn out to be wrong, around November 1st or 2nd or so, when I give my final prediction about how the race is going to go, I'll admit that I was wrong. Right during all the primaries, right up until about a month ago when, I started being incorrect. And I'll admit to that. And I'll say, no, Clinton will win the election. Numbers just aren't there for Trump to win. But I don't see that happening. I don't believe it's likely. Possible, but still unlikely. And I'm going to maintain that, by the way, unless Trump completely takes a dump on himself, like Clinton's campaign bus apparently did in the middle of the street. I'm going to hold to that. And at my final prediction, if it becomes clear that Trump, despite all the scandals embroiling Hillary and despite the fact that there's substantially less scandal involving the Trump campaign, if he's still substantially behind in unbiased polling, not counting CNN polls, not counting NBC polls, those ones get ignored. So, by the way, does Rasmussen that shows him up right now. I'm ignoring that too. If it's not about even or if he's not ahead, then yeah, I'll call the election for Clinton at that point. But right now, we've got a couple more weeks to go before that. We've got another debate. We've got numerous leaks to go before that, as well as a shifting public discourse that is becoming less and less interested in the fact that Trump grabbed her by the pussy a decade ago, and more interested in the fact that several Democratic key operatives are openly proclaiming that they've attempted to conduct electoral fraud on a massive scale in Iowa and Wisconsin. That's about all. Peace out.